you've come to in the past. Young Eric, how are you doing?
Yeah, young Mike, I should say.
I mean, he's not been well, as you probably know, and he's been in the midst of a recovery program.
Well, I've had a couple of bad operations.
Yes, you have.
It's not just downhill,
No.
as you do at 90, but
Yes.
I've had these operations and they've really laid me low, unfortunately.
Right. Well,
But still, I'm recovering, or on the way to recovery.
what we did agree is that you've now been joined by the Queen and David Attenborough from a point of view of your age.
Oh, yeah,
they caught you up.
They've caught me up. We're all 90 now, which is
There
a good
you go.
thing. It's a great age to be, Matt, I say.
Well, a lot of us aspire to get there. Some of us won't.
Oh well,
That's for sure.
You will, I'm sure.
Anyway, I hope you've all got your copy of this, and you've read it, and you've enjoyed it. And I don't know, how did sales go?
Well, they're very well. I've got to rewrite it. Copies have been sent to all the universities.
Right.
So, because of course it gives a new concept. It's the
Indeed.
linking time and infinity. And that is the
Right.
answer to all the problems, because we see life just as one step at a time.
Right.
Just one, whereas in infinity, everything is an eternal present.
So they'd all be paralleled and
So
everything. Yes.
Your life, for instance,
Yes.
in infinity is like a ruler, and there's your birth, there's your death,
Yeah.
and this is all the bits of your life.
Right. I've been doing timelines actually.
Pardon?
I've been doing timelines for my history.
Have you?
Yes,
because
I have.
this is the answer to every problem we've got, because
Right.
we only see it one little tiny bit at a time.
Right.
Whereas in infinity, which is obviously everything else, the whole of the universe and the whole of the power,
Right.
I call it the power instead of God.
Yes.
In that, because it is the power, it's the force,
Right.
holds everything together.
Universal force.
Universal force, but it has got, I won't start
No.
it now. Get the book and you read it, and you'll find the force must have intelligence.
Right. So that's not a plug for his book, but it's a plug for his book.
It's a
All right.
very good book. It's worth reading. It takes an hour, but you have to read it from cover to cover in 1 hour.
Yeah. So there you go.
It's a very subtle concept, and you have to grasp that thing, the difference, or the, how shall I say, how time and infinity run parallel together.
Right.
So we can have our little section at a time, and at
Okay.
the same time have everything there as an eternal present.
Right, but what we're going to do, we're going to go back on this timeline, or this time continuum, to when you were up in Norfolk still, and you had 250 acres on which there were wild deer, farmed on contract apparently, but you created the Hillside Animal Sanctuary where...
No, I didn't create the Hillside
This was
Animal
Wendy,
Sanctuary.
was it?
This was Wendy Valentine. She's
Right.
a marvellous woman. She's very into animals.
Right.
And she had lost her premises, or somebody had pirated them from her.
Right,
Somehow, I
right,
can't
right.
remember all the details. But she came to me, and I said, well, come here and start your new animal sanctuary. And I remember sitting down in the office with her,
Yeah.
and forming the company and doing all the bits and pieces. But there it started, and it's went from strength to strength from there.
So it's still
And
there?
it's still going strong, the animal sanctuary.
Right.
I don't know what it's called. What did you say?
Well, Hillside. okay.
Hillside Animal Sanctuary. Support it. Do give them some
Do.
money.
So-
They'll love it.
So what sort of animals do they have?
Well, they rescued animals.
Oh, I
It's
see.
a rescue thing.
So it could be domestic as well as wild,
Oh
as
yes,
well as
absolutely,
farm.
everything. She was wonderful. She looked after all animals, and she really had feeling about
Right.
them.
So-
I presume she's still going. I hope she is.
We should have Googled it.
We should have Googled
Whatever
it.
Google is, what is Google?
Google,
I don't know,
Google's a
'cause I don't
search
use
en-
it.
Google's a search engine.
But you're talking a different language.
Oh,
I start with the quill pen and the
You
Alibaba.
youngsters are usually ahead of us
No,
olders,
no.
but I love my technology.
I
See, I've
know.
even got, that watch came out a year before the one that Apple brought out.
Yes, it did. I remember you buying it and
Um,
tapping it and getting really
It's well,
excited
it
by it.
answers my phone calls. Look, it's got the time on it.
I know, but it never says anything.
It
Well, you
does
never answer
sometimes.
mine.
It might not have come
One day.
on. One day.
One day. Okay, let's get back on this timeline, and this is back to the 90s. This is saying. Is that right? Back in the 1990s.
Would be the 90s, the 80s, 90s. That's right.
Right.
Yes.
So you were sort of settling up, but it would appear that you had a very important thing to do, and that was to get the appropriate signage erected to show people where to get to.
When I first went to Hermitage Hall and Collector's World,
Yes.
there was 250 acres of farmland.
Right.
And then I discovered that it was the site of one of the old pilgrimage sites. So
Right.
see, in those days, people used to go on pilgrimage
Yeah.
to places like Walsingham, and
Right.
but what people today don't realise, they had to walk.
Indeed,
Because
they
they only had horses and carts, and they
Yeah.
couldn't take horses and carts, so they'd gather together. So you'd get a group of perhaps 20 or 30 people,
Mm.
and they would walk.
Yeah.
So they could walk for a day,
Yeah.
and then they had to have somewhere to stop.
Right. So
And
you've got
this was a
waypoints.
pilgrimage point. And these premises which we bought, this farm, was one of the points where they stopped. It was alongside, it had a mile-long frontage to the River Ouse.
Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And of course the pilgrims used to walk up, and there on that point there was an old building where apparently they used to
Overnight.
overnight.
Ah,
So
right.
I restored it as you do,
Yes.
and I put a chapel in there, and
Oh, right.
we had the Blessed Sacrament because we were Catholics
Right.
then, and we put the Blessed Sacrament in there. The bishop came and he blessed it, and he put the Blessed Sacrament in there. We used to have Mass every week,
Oh,
and
right.
we had a congregation.
So it's sort of an active.
Oh, it was very active, and we used to
Is
have
it still
retreat.
going?
No, well, I'll come to that in a minute. And it was very active. We used to have retreats. The convent school in Swaffham used to come over every month, practically. They used to have processions, and it was really a religious centre, which was very nice.
No,
It was-
super. Well, it gave it a heart.
it
Didn't
did
Really?
give it a
And
heart.
you were returning to something that it had been.
And of course,
Which
it
is
had
lovely.
another connection with Nelson, because Nelson learnt to sail.
You mean the Venerable Lord now?
The very venerable Lord, with one arm. He learnt to sail.
Where would it been without him?
Absolutely. He learnt to sail, apparently, so we're told, and that on the river outside the farm.
Did he really?
Because, you see, he used to live, or he had an uncle.
He did up in
His
the north.
father
and the
died,
yeah.
I think, and then
Yeah.
he had to go and live with his uncle.
Yeah.
And he lived in a place...
Double
yes,
barreled now.
I can't
up on the
remember.
coast.
It's
Yeah.
a few miles from Downham Market.
But he was always seasick apparently on his
Was
first
he?
couple of he was
Was
always
he?
his first couple of days out he was before he got his sea
I
legs.
didn't know that.
I don't know about his sea arms, but his sea legs.
Maybe the effect of the river there.
Well, I think he was expecting to be calm and it never
Yes,
was.
yes.
Yeah. I mean,
But he apparently learnt to sail on the bit of river outside our
Brilliant.
house, which was
and
a nice
you
connection.
bigged that up a bit.
Oh, absolutely.
So you got a
absolutely.
flagship and banged it in the river and whatever. Anyway, it would appear to get signage for all of this, you had to pay a
Oh yeah,
a
but
sum
this
of
took a little while. You see, when I
Right.
first started,
yeah.
it was just local church people used to come, but then people started to hear about my collection because I've never thrown anything away. This is a remnant of the last war,
It is.
and I'd never thrown anything away.
Make do
And
and
we
make.
had 17 buildings there, farm buildings,
Yeah.
and I'd filled them all up with all my collections.
Wonderful stuff.
And then I thought, well, I'll open it to the public on a
Right.
Sunday. When we were at Well Manor,
Uh-huh.
I used to open the place to the public, I think once a month, and the people used to come in and have a look. So I did the same thing at Downham Market,
Right.
but the influx of people was so huge, I said, well, let me make a business of this.
Yes.
So we put a restaurant in, and we, made a thing of it, and we found that we were getting huge numbers of people coming in.
Right.
So I thought, well, and the trouble was they were all getting lost getting to us.
Yes.
So I thought,
I can believe that.
So I thought, well, we must have signposts.
Yeah.
And I went to the transport, the road people, and they said, oh yes, we can put on every junction all the way round the radius of a
lovely.
mile,
Yeah.
but it'll cost you £5,000.
Surprise,
So
surprise.
I paid £5,000, and we were signposted, and of course that brought more people in,
Yeah.
and we ended up with something like, I can't remember, 70,000 visitors a year or
Very
something.
good.
It
Very
was
good.
a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, and did you repeat your Christmas evergreen thing? There?
Oh yes, that was repeated there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had one huge area you could walk through. You walked through a time
Yes.
capsule first of all. That took you back in time to Christmas,
And that was it.
and then you were in Christmas, but not Christmas today.
Victorian.
Christmas, Victorian
Yes.
Christmas.
They created
and
Christmas.
of course
didn't they?
you had all the old shops. So instead of just having a collection of, say for argument's sake, old one specific thing, you went back to Victorian days and had a shop, a Victorian shop selling it.
Glorious.
So you really went from shop to shop. We even had a bigger boy, one of my grandchildren, I might add.
Oh, right. I could have done
he
that
used to
quite
sit
well.
there with his hat as a Victorian bigger boy. He made
Did he get much?
He made a lot of money out of it, I promise you. But he could only do it in the holidays.
Oh, I love it.
But it was a great success. It was a lot of fun as well.
Yeah.
And you went back. So you went back at Christmas time.
Yes.
And we had a.
But I mean, there are quite a lot of shops open as Christmas shops all the year round.
A lot of people have copied it since.
And you patented it, obviously.
Well, I wish we had.
Copyright.
I wish we had.
Yeah.
I wish we had.
Now, the next entry I've got is 1998, a world trip for your 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh, I've wedded 50. Yes, now that was a big occasion. We actually, looking back, I think, you see, now, since I've had my operation,
I know.
my memory isn't as good as it was.
Just crack on.
But I think that 50th wedding anniversary came after we'd sold Collector's World, because there was such a demand for it, and well, we won't go into all of that at the moment. But
do it as a separate when we go up and do our trip.
Well, that's right. But for our 50th wedding anniversary, I thought it would be a nice thing to do a trip right round the world.
Well, of course.
And I'd spent 2.5 years in Burma in the war.
Yes.
And I wanted to show Burma to my wife.
I bet.
And Singapore, because when I was in Singapore,
nothing like now.
It was all straw huts and whatsits and things.
Yeah.
So I thought, I want to show my wife all of this. And so I got in touch with a very good travel agency.
Right.
And I said, I want to organise this world trip. And they said, oh, leave it all to us, sir. We'll do the whole lot.
Right.
And I thought, well, this is brilliant. And it was very reasonable. We went first class, of course.
Of course you would. Well, I mean, there's no other way.
50th wedding anniversary.
I'd be stoic.
I could. I won't tell you what I
If at all.
But anyway, so they organised everything.
Right.
But the amazing thing was, every plane we got on, the stewards and stewardesses used to come rushing up with champagne and cake, and the agency had organised all of it, and it was the airline that actually paid us. And then we were invited. In those days, it was before the terrorism.
Yeah.
We were taken up into the cockpit,
Yes.
and so would sit the captain of the thing.
Yep.
Absolutely incredible. So every little step
Was great.
and we went from one place, you know, from London, I think we went, I can't remember, to Dubai.
Right.
We spent a week in Dubai, and then from Dubai we went to Singapore perhaps, and spent a week in Singapore, and then we went on to Bangkok and spent a week in Bangkok.
Right.
And so we went on all the way around the world.
When you went back to Burma,
Yes.
where did you go to?
Well, this is amazing, because we'd been to Australia first, and there was a travel agent.
Yeah.
I've got a son in Australia. I've got more than that. I've got grandchildren, all sorts. But this travel agent said, "Well, Burma is completely cut off from the world."
Well, it was then.
But we have got a contact.
Oh, right.
And so they said, "Well, we'll arrange everything for you."
Right.
So we did it with them. And when we got to Burma, it was like a little Nissan hut where we landed.
Yes.
This
Immigration
little
control. Yeah.
But the this agency, they'd laid on a guide,
Right.
2 guards,
What do you mean guards?
men to protect us.
Really?
Yeah. 2 guards and a 10-seater bus.
Oh, right.
And they were with us from sort of the crack of dawn till we went to bed.
Really?
All 3 of them on this bus. Do you know how much it cost us?
I dread to think.
£50 a day for all that.
Amazing.
It was amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
But as a result, we had an amazing
Well, of course, it was
trip.
still a military dictatorship.
It was,
wasn't it? Totally.
It was.
So it was a close society.
I can remember them driving us past this house with 2 guards, you know, men with rifles standing outside at the entrance gate.
Yeah.
And the girl said, it was a girl guide. The guide was a girl, not
Right.
a girl
guide, I like that.
But she said, don't look at them or they'll shoot you.
Well, that's an
And
encouraging.
she said, look out of the corner of your eye, and that is the entrance where this woman, there was a woman who used to run things. He said, I don't know,
Yes.
you're very clever at these things.
No, I followed her. I thought she was a brave woman.
Yes, but she lived there, but she had these guards outside.
That's right, yeah.
But the poverty was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And it hadn't changed one little bit.
Well, that was
from
the point I
time
wanted to raise with you.
The time that I was there was not one little bit of change. And just to give you an example of the poverty, people don't realise poverty in this country.
No, we haven't got a clue.
I wanted to show my wife the cathedral, the Catholic cathedral,
Oh, right.
but of course it was closed. But of course we went, she took us there,
Yeah.
and they opened it up specially for us to see this cathedral.
Just the cathedral.
Just the cathedral. Yeah. And there was a man cutting the lawn outside. And do you know how he was cutting
scissors?
it? No, with a dinner knife.
Oh, right.
With a dinner knife, cutting it like that. Unbelievable. And of course, I said to him, what on earth is he doing? He said he's cutting. I said, what does he get paid for that? I thought, he said he gets twopence for a morning's work. But I said, well, that's not very much. But it was tough, the old currency then, I think. And he said, yes, but it was pay for his rice for lunch. But the poverty, so he'd spend the morning cutting grass with a dinner knife. Yeah. Unbelievable, the poverty.
But it is, and it was. But from what you're saying, it would appear that the original sort of colonial period buildings and governor's houses, all those sort of things were still intact and there.
Oh, in Burma, of course, it's the pagodas which are the thing.
Yes.
And they hadn't been touched, of course. They were still there. The Swedagon pagoda, huge thing.
Yeah.
And I always remember after the war, when I was sailing away, because we came out by ship, looking at the coast of Burma,
right,
and I see all these lovely shining pagodas in the sun. Absolutely glorious sight.
But there is a big movement afoot worldwide, because sort of Burma is a time warp, to retain as much of the really good things that they had, rather than do the mad thing that normally happens, is massive redevelopment, knocking everything down, brand new high, like Singapore. I mean, Singapore, it just turned itself.
I took my wife to Singapore, and I said, now we're going to have all these straw huts and as I remembered it. We went in modern buildings everywhere, and I said, where is the bazaar? Because I remember the Singapore bazaar, it was huge. And we're building one for the visitors.
But the same thing happened in Dubai. An awful lot of the, disappeared with redevelopment, because you can do both. Keep the best of what you have, which is what we tend to try to do in our cities, don't we? Anyway, onward.
But in Burma, of course, I don't know what's happening there today. I should track on it.
You sort of vaguely got a democratic election system, but the military still has a key controlling interest.
Is it? I see.
San Suu Kyi has a difficulty in progress. She was here, I think, to have a meet with our new lady Prime Minister.
Oh, really?
So you had two. I mean, the ladies, thank God, are taking over the world.
What age is she then? Now?
Oh, she's late 60s, I think. She's
She must be old.
because she was locked up for now on 10, 20 years. Yes. I mean, a long time. Very brave woman. Yeah. Very, very brave.
But anyway, so that was my memories of Burma. But that was only part of the trip round the world. We had most amazing trip. I've learnt so many things. I think one of the things which intrigued me most was because we went from Australia on to New Zealand.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, my wife's
we went to the bottom end of New Zealand, and then we travelled right up to the top end where the islands are, and we saw it all. And then from there, this was the interesting, but we went through to the islands, I can't remember.
What, the offshore islands?
There's a lot of islands between New Zealand and America.
Ah, yes, you've got Norfolk Islands, you've got... Yes, that's the other side.
I can't remember the name of these islands, but I was most intrigued. We went round them, and do you know where people bury their dead?
Not on the hill.
No, you never believe it.
No.
They bury them in their front gardens.
Oh, right, so there's a
So you walk down, and there are all the houses, and in the gardens you've got the signs where people are buried.
Brilliant.
And apparently when they sell a house, the person who buys the house has to say they will undertake to keep up the graves. But can you imagine burying your dead in your front garden?
Yeah, I can. I mean, we did it with our cat. No, we did it with our cats and dogs.
Human beings are slightly different.
But when you look at America, when you've got the old sort of open range, you see the thing, and that's often in the house, isn't it? Beside it, sort of.
Oh, I've never seen. But it's all part. It's
all
part. So the dead are all part of the present scene.
As they should be.
So it's fascinating.
It is.
There are lots of interesting bits like that, but I've forgotten them.
So I really think your 50th wedding anniversary trip might be quite a good place to stop.
Right, thank
Cheers.
you.
And
God
look,
bless
even
you.
Bella's gone to sleep. So cheers for now. Come and see us next week. Bye.
God bless you. Bye.